Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to talk about what my picks are for the 5 best Transformers cards for CEDH. So alongside the next standard set, we also have 15 new Transformers cards that will be Eternal Format legal. Today I'm going to talk about the best of them. Let's move on to the list with number 5, Prowl, Stoic, Strategist. So for 3 generic and a white, you get a legendary artifact creature with the ability More Than Meets the Eye. That means you can cast the back half of this card for an alternate cost. It also says, when Prowl attacks, exile up to 1 target tapped creature or vehicle. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may play it. And whenever a player plays a card exiled with Prowl, you may draw a card and convert Prowl. On the back half of Prowl, you have Prowl Pursuit Vehicle, which has Living Metal, which says as long as it is your turn. This vehicle is also a creature. It also reads, whenever another creature or vehicle enters the battlefield under your control, you can put a 1/1 counter on Prowl, and if this is the second time that ability is resolved this turn, convert Prowl. So this is a decentish new pickup for some mono-white stacks decks. It can temporarily remove some problem creatures during your turn, because you swing, remove the tapped creature, and then they would have to recast it. Specifically good in stacks decks because then they would have to use their single cast to recast their creature on their turn. It also is able to draw cards, if a bit slowly, and the back half can grow itself to be a real aggressive threat. There is a bit of downside, though, with the fact that it can only hit target tapped creatures, meaning that its ability is mostly going to be used to remove things like Corvolds or Ishais, which is stuff that can get around the stacks game plan by merit of just growing out of control and killing the stacks player. So let's move on now to number 4, Soundwave Sonic Spy. So this is a legendary artifact creature for 1 generic and Esper that says whenever 1 or more creature tokens you control deal combat damage to a player, exile target instant or sorcery with mana value equal to the damage dealt from their graveyard. Copy it and you may cast the copy without paying its mana cost if you too convert Soundwave. On the back half, you get Soundwave Superior Captain, which is a legendary artifact that says whenever you cast a spell with an odd mana value, convert Soundwave. If you do, create Ravage, a legendary 3/3 black robot artifact creature token with Menace and Death Touch. Then if you cast a spell with an even mana value, convert Soundwave. And if you do, create Laserbeak, a legendary 2/2 blue robot artifact creature token with flying and hexproof. So this is an Esper commander that can steal your opponent's instants and sorceries from yard. The place that you're most likely going to use this, though, is to use it to recast your opponent's tutors, specifically their 2-drop tutors. Because the card does specifically read that it deals damage and you can cast things equal to the damage dealt. So you have to be very specific with the amount of damage you're going to do if you're going to steal specific cards. This card is still pretty good with hand destruction effects, but you will probably have to run a variety of different creature token generators to make sure that you deal the exact damage you want to be able to get whatever you want from your opponent's yard. So, interesting, but that one thing about making it exact makes it a bit less so. Let's move on now to a more interesting card with number 3, Goldbug, Humanity's Ally. For a generic in white and blue, you get a legendary artifact creature that says, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to attacking humans you control. It also says, when you cast your second spell each turn, convert Goldbug. The back half of Goldbug is Goldbug Scrappy Scout. That has a living metal vehicle that says, human spells you control can't be countered. And whenever Goldbug and at least one other human attack, you draw a card and convert Goldbug. So this is a really good new piece for decks like Avinia and any other hate bear based strategy, because pretty much all hate bears are humans, and making sure that they can't be countered is really strong. Another really powerful upside to this card is that it can be easily kept on whichever half of the card that you want, because the convert is something that you can easily control. Because if you want to keep it on Scrappy Scout, you just don't attack. And if you want to keep it on Humanity's Ally, you just don't cast 2 spells during each turn. This card also works as a cheap advantage engine, because if you want to, you can easily flip back and forth every other turn to draw cards with Scrappy Scout. Let's move on now to number 2, Flamewar, Brash Veteran. So this card, for a generic in Rakdos, you get a legendary artifact robot creature that's a 3/2 that says you can sacrifice another artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Flamewar, and convert it. Activate only as a sorcery. You can also pay 1 generic to discard your hand, put all cards exiled you own with intel counters on them into your hand. So the intel counters all have to do with the back half of this card, that being Flamewar Streetwise Operative, another living metal vehicle that has the keywords Menace and Death Touch. And it says whenever Flamewar deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards from the top of your library face down. Put an intel counter on each of them, and then convert Flamewar. So this card is very similar to Florian from Innistrad Midnight Hunt, in that you deal damage, you get cards. But this one gets a plurality of cards as opposed to just digging deep for them. So if you can really pump up the Streetwise Operative half of Flamewar, you can then use its ability to be able to draw a ton of cards with the front half of the card. So that's what makes this card interesting, possibly as a Breach/Doomsday commander. Breach because A, you're filling up your yard when you're discarding things, and Doomsday because you can then pick up a Doomsday pile with the both halves of Flamewar. Also, this is possibly just good enough as an advantage piece in a Rakdos Breach Doomsday deck that it could be played in the 99 of said strategies. Let's move on now to number 1, Ratchet Field Medic. This is a creature for 2 generic and a white that says lifelink, and also, the more important part, whenever you gain life, you may convert Ratchet. And when you do, return target artifact card with mana value less than or equal to the amount of life you gain this turn from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It also then flips into Ratchet Rescue Racer that also has lifelink, that's living metal, and it says whenever 1 or more non-token artifacts you control are put into the graveyard from the battlefield, convert Ratchet. This ability triggers only once each turn. So basically, this is a creature that reanimates artifacts from your yard whenever you gain life. This has a ton of different applications in a lot of the best mono white decks right now. Stuff like Oswald Fiddlebender already puts a ton of artifacts into yard, so you can just use this as a piece to be able to get back key pieces if your opponent's able to take him out before you successfully combo off. It also has quite a bit of combo potential of its own, because if you're able to gain life whenever you return something, you can then just keep sacking said thing over and over and just flip back between the two. I figured a line between this and LED, because LED doesn't actually require the ability to tap to be able to sack itself, but that would also take a lot of other pieces to be able to get to work. So while all the pieces might not exist right now, there's definitely some potential for this card to have several combos in the future. And for now, it's just really good in pretty much any artifact deck. Well, thank you all for watching. Hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.